We're going to try something new today. I am going to record my process for working through a Jira ticket. And I think this will be interesting because about 2 months ago, maybe a little more, 3 months ago or so, I started jumping into Agentic IDEs. I went with Windsurf. Shout out to Syntax and the Windsurf core team that came on there. Podcast, if you're not familiar, great podcast. Definitely recommend it. And yeah, so I got started with Windsurf, which is a competitor to Cursor, and I loved it right away. But as time went on, just like I found when manually prompting models like Claude or OpenAI, there are lots of traps, right? And it's super impressive what these AIs can do, especially when they're hooked up to your IDE with few shot or zero shot prompts. Basically, essentially just providing them a problem in a single prompt and then like clicking go and they start solving it, right? What I found is that that sometimes works. It depends on the problem. But and this is where I have a little bit more confidence in the future of what development looks like uh, and my comfort around keeping a job in this industry. AI still can't replace some of the uh, kind of planning and um, problem solving that we human developers, especially those of us that have been around a while and have a fair amount of experience solving problems over and over again, that we have, right? That spans maybe not just a single code base, but multiple code bases, multiple technologies. We're constantly pulling as human beings from tons and tons of context, right? Experiential context, we know how to search the web to solve problems. These agentic IDEs can do the same thing with a lot of this stuff, but um, our context window is massive compared to what these agentic IDEs have, or these LLMs that are powering these agentic IDEs. And so yeah, I feel like we still have an edge, right? We, take the average senior that's working at a fairly large size company. Chances are they know how to take a large problem, break it into smaller pieces, take each of those pieces and break it into a set of smaller solutions, right? Or solution steps and methodically work through those, right? Um, and yeah, and so that's a little bit of a preface before we jump in. And so you're going to see me try and apply a little bit of a made up framework that I've been using to make sure that I steer clear of some of these traps. What we want to avoid here is AI slop in the code, right? And so I've already built a few tools to help me out with this. We've got pretty rigorously put together Jira tickets, which I have a Jira agentic workflow that helps me to compose these. But this is the one that we're going to work on right now. Um, for context, we're working on a product suite called Wrkbelt, which serves service industry businesses. I'm sure I'll probably put out a video that explains a little bit more about that at some point in the future. But for the purpose of this video, we are going to go and build out a new resource module in our Nest.js API. And so let's jump in. But I guess first we should probably look through the Jira ticket. So what we're doing is we are going to enable this user story. As a developer, I want to implement the booking flow step API resource module, lots of words, with proper organization scoping and base entity structure so I can manage booking flow steps that make up our configurable booking flows. Okay, so to the average person, that's going to sound like gibberish. To me, I already have enough context to know what we mean by organization scoping, base entity structure. We can talk about this as we go. But we jump into my IDE. I think this will probably help. We're building a deployable scheduler. You can think of it as like a widget, right? And this thing is going to be embedded in customer websites, and it's going to pull the appropriate scheduler config, and that's going to enable customizable like wizard steps, right? This widget is essentially opening up a wizard flow, and it allows our clients to build out unique, tailored experiences to their customers or their target customers to be able to book technicians coming to their house and solving a problem, right? Some of these are in the HVAC space, some of them are in the garage door installation space. So it just depends. And so we've built this embeddable tool in the form of a essentially a mocked out so no API at the moment um, scheduler component, right? Using Storybook, and we're using a bunch of, like I said, mock data, but we've got these types defined that are supposed to inform what we eventually need to add into the back end, right? And so that's where that's where this comes in, right? Base entity structure, um, right? And this schema is actually coming from this. This is the file that contains those mock data types, right? And so the component right now is completely um, uh, yeah, I don't know how else to describe it. It lacks a back end, right? And everything that it does use is mock data, and that mock data is typed accordingly, right? It's using these types in this file. And what we are going to be building is the booking flow step, um, which is actually quite a complex entity. It's what's called it's an entity that uses what's called discriminated unions or discriminated union types, because it can take a number of different shapes depending on the step type, right? And so remember, I mentioned the wizard has different kinds of configurable steps. Well, in order to allow somebody to compose those steps, we need to allow them to compose different kinds of step documents. We use Mongo. So they're composing different types of step documents that inform what a user sees when they go and use the widget, right? And so there's a zip code step, there's a service selection step, additional details, etc. Um, and for this ticket, it's important to note that we are just concerned with building out, I believe, let's see, booking flow step. Step. I believe we are not building, it doesn't say it here. Now I'm starting to wonder if this is the right ticket. Let's take a look. What I want to see out of scope is everything around service selection, which is a very complicated step that we've intentionally tried to keep separate. So let's take a look here. 680, that's what we were looking at. Okay, I think if I'm remembering correctly, it's likely over here that we API resource module. 685. All right. Oh, we have two here. No, we don't. This is different. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and mention out of scope here. Out of scope. And yes, this is not how you would normally follow processes on a proper agile team, but I'm also the PM for our team. So what are we putting out of scope? We're going to put anything related to building our service selection step, building the service selection step. And so what that means here is here's our service selection step, which is a very complex entity that captures a graph. We're not going to build that in the scope of this ticket. We're going to do the simple ones, which include zip code step, flow summary, customer, da 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 da. So just I'll put a little thing here. Note Do not include in the scope of, what's the ticket number? 680. Okay. When 680. Okay. All right. So let's jump in. So I've got my little Atlassian extension here. Let's go ahead and open this up. We'll start some work. This is a nifty little tool. We're on main, so why do you want to source from Apache branch? And because this is new and we're following something resembling Git flow, we're going to use feat or feature, right, as our prefix on the branch. And we're going to start the work. Okay. So while that is opening up, it's checking out a new branch, we are ready to go. And so let's take a look. Here's what I'm going to do. So I'm gonna carve out a little notes page, right? And we're gonna call this is gonna be something that we don't commit, but we'll call this when 680 implementation plan. And we're gonna save it just to the root. And this would be plan.md. There we go. Okay. And so let's see. Let's take a look here. This is the ticket again. So we're trying to build out the core module for this entity, booking flow step, right? And so let's see, objective, build out core module for booking flow step, right? And let's mention our out of scope. We are not going to include service selection step. And we should note this will include CRUD. Actually, do this. This will include CRUD endpoints for new step. All steps except service selection. There we go. And let's see, is there anything else that we want to know? Oh, we want to use discriminated types. Use discriminated types and discriminated schemas, mongoose schemas. We're using mongoose for our ORM. Okay. All right, let's see. So that's our plan. Well, that sets up our plan. Let's see. Now what I want to do is let's put together an implementation plan. So sequence, implementation sequence. And we'll do this stepwise. So let's build our base types for the booking flow step in, and not that this is going to make sense to anyone except for me and the developers on the team, but I know we need to build them in here. So this is where we keep all of our shared types. This is so that we can share these between the front and the back end. And we're going to call this booking flow step. That's the name of the library or the directory in that library. And then we will build. And so this is going to include several things, actually. This is going to include an entity, enums, entity. Well, yeah, there's one entity, but it'll have discriminated types and discriminated types. Enums, which will capture the actual discriminated type string that determines if it's service selection or zip code or whatever, and DTOs, right? And then let's once we've got this, build out. We can start with DTOs for the booking flow step, and it got it right. Look at that. That's nice little autocomplete. Let's just make sure that that's the right place. services API source. Okay, we're in scheduler, and I'm just gonna grab this relative path, right? And just change this so that it's flow step, and this is in DTOs. Great. And then once we've got the DTOs, so this is an isolated thing. Like we're going to be able to compile the project like that if we're thinking atomically here. Once we've done that, I imagine we're going to have, because we're using discriminated Mongoose schemas, we are going to have multiple schemas, and I like to separate these out by modules, right? And so that means we're going to have a schemas directory, and we can see that done in a similar way here, right? And so this will include, oops, no, okay. There's going to be a base, and then there's going to be, yeah, step type config. This is actually this is the discriminated type. Well, actually, no, this is where the variation happens between the discriminated types that we're using. So the key for discrimination is step type. So step type determines what step type config is expected, right? And so we're going to have a variety. So yeah, there we go. It got it right. But we're just not going to include service selection. And I think the one thing that we're missing is the time selection, time slot selection. There we go. And then we can start to build out the actual, so actually, no, sorry, build out repository at, so we use a repository pattern here. And I think it got it right. Let's go ahead and just copy this just to be safe. It's not schemas, but instead we're going to see this called booking flow step repository.ts. Okay. This should follow a similar approach to that taken in. And we have a really nice example of how to build a repository with discriminated types here, because population in Mongoose is challenging. It's a Mongoose thing. It's also a little bit of Nest, but in the way that discriminated schemas work, population can be challenging. And so there's a little bit of work that we've got to do there in the repository to make that work. Okay, let's see. Lives if you so that looks good. This should follow similar approach. Extend off of our base repository, which is exemplified here. And once we're done there, we can build out our service module, which is going to take a very similar format here in terms of name. It's just going to be service, right? And then now we've got, so we've kind of worked from the back forward, right? So now the only thing that's missing is our controller, and it picked up on that. So this is the plan. I think it's going to work. And let's see, is there anything else to note? Let's just take a peek here. We've got our DTOs. We've got to set up our module. So that's the one piece that's missing. And it picked it up on that. Look at that. Okay, cool. So let's just make sure this is correct. And then we have to register it. And register module in. And let's grab this guy. This is where we register all of our schedule related modules. Okay, cool. So we've got 7 steps, 7 kind of large steps in our implementation sequence. And so now we get to the part where we're going to have to figure out prompting the agent that's built into our IDE, right? I've been using Claude 3.7 Sonnet and turning on thinking mode just because I haven't seen Gemini 2.5 do really well with this, even though it's got the larger context window. Maybe it's just too fast. I just don't see it doing a lot of thinking. So I've compared and contrasted these two things. Anyway, for the purposes of this, I'm using Claude 3.7 Sonnet with thinking mode turned on. I am burning some extra credit here, but I'm not worried about that. Okay, and so let's go ahead and get started on this. So here's what I've been doing when starting to prompt this. I've got it on write mode, and what I'm going to do is let's tell it what. Let's give it a little bit of context here. So we have a Jira ticket that we need to complete. Please read through its details below. And then this is the format that I've been using. Summary, so I'll put in quotes, and then description, which is it's going to be a little funky looking because it uses a specific kind of syntax in Jira with the H2 as opposed to Markdown. So there's our description, and this is the summary. Oh, okay. And I'm going to just ask it before we start, review your memories regarding pre-existing API patterns. And there's one specific memory that's important in particular. By the way, I just got the most recent update to Windsurf, and in it, they now allow you to edit memories. And so this is the name of the memory that I want it to remember, which is API Resource Module Guidelines for Wrkbelt. Let's head back over here. Oh no. Well, looks like I'm gonna have to start over. Okay, we have a Jira ticket that we need to complete. Read through its details below. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and paste this here. Before we begin, please review your memories related to a pre-existing API patterns. And then we'll give it the example. This in quotes, just so that it really knows how to pick that up. In addition to, and we host our dev docs in the same repository. This is a big integrated monorepo. So we've got dev docs here, in addition to the apps, in addition to our consumer facing documentation. So fortunately, I can just reference a file. We are going to do resource module pattern, which is here, and it explains expected structures, things like that, repository pattern, shared types, there we go. And we use Swagger decoration on our controllers. And so I think it's under, yeah, API documentation, OpenAI. All right, great. Let's get started first by carrying out the following task. I'll say task. Okay, now let's add back in that Jira ticket. So summary and description. Description. Okay. Back over here. All right, there's our summary. And let's grab our description. Okay, great. Okay, and so I'm happy with this. Oh, yeah, let's give it the plan. Um, here's our plan. Here's our implementation plan. And we can actually give it the plan MD that we built for it to review. Please review thoroughly. I know we're just eating up its context window here, but that's okay. Let's get started first by carrying out the first task, which is this one. Let me copy this. Oh, it doesn't seem to be pasting. That's interesting. Oh, okay. Paste isn't working. So, well, it's all right. Maybe something with the recent update. Build our base types for the booking flow step. Booking flow step in. Real bummer that it's not allowing me to paste. Let me try one more time. Okay. Well, hopefully it picks up on this. In our shared types data library. Put this on the other side. So hopefully it's smart enough to get that. So let's see what happens. Okay. So this is Cascade, by the way. It's the feature that Windsurf has called its agentic flows portion of the application. So it's going and doing some searching, researching the various files that I mentioned. Let's see. And so now we have to put on our senior developer hats because we are essentially starting a pair programming session with what one could argue is somewhere between a junior and a mid-level engineer, but one that really doesn't have great long-term planning skills, and that has trouble seeing like the larger picture. Okay, so we've got the first step. It's called a tool. It's going to create bookingflowstep.enum, right? This is what we want. Let's just make sure that it's in the right place. Okay, got it. So booking flow step enum. Um, okay, it went ahead and built out a type metadata constant. That's okay. I'm okay with that. Um, which is a flow that we have in other places, by the way. Let's just make sure that it doesn't go too far. So let's see, what else has it created? It's created our entity. We've got title, description. So this is the booking flow step config. Now, let's see. I'm going to have it create this last index barrel file, and then we're going to stop it. And let me see okay, let's just let it do its thing. It's trying to fix some linting errors, which it has permission to do, given my settings. But once it finishes up here, let's just see what do we have? What's going on? Okay, yeah, that looks fine. Correlated to missing product JSON files in test util. Okay, hang on, stop. I think we've got. I think this is just a remnant of another branch that I was working on. Let's just do an NX reset. Okay. Let's accept the changes for now because it's really hard to read when it's in this like temporary state. Okay, and so here is the closest thing that I have to a source of truth for the data model that we're trying to support, right? So there's our API types. Let's first go in. I'm going to minimize this a bit. Let's first go into our enum. Let's make sure that our enum works. And so where do we have this before? This is called step type. And my TypeScript server has crashed. Again, I don't know if this is a TypeScript specific thing or if Windsurf is putting extra stress on the servers that get run as part of the extensions here, but it is what it is. Let's see. Okay, so this is what we want to see. Zip code, service selection. Didn't get that right. Let's change this. I think that's important. There we go. And that's nice when it does autocomplete, doesn't it? Okay, cool. All right, so this is looking good. All right. I am comfortable committing this. So what do we do here? This is a chore. This is not a main feature that we are enabling with this commit. So create booking flow step enums. And these are shared. All right. Let's move on to the entity. This is what I was curious about. And it looks like it may have corrected for this. Um, okay, so we have an issue with the original source of truth for the mock data types. Notice the conventions here aren't followed consistently. So let's go ahead and fix that. Um, I'm going to do that and commit it immediately. So let's do this. We'll do a symbol replacement, which if you're on Mac is F2. And what is it trying to call this? I think it's supposed to be advanced days, default duration minutes, advanced days. I'm not opposed to that. I think max days in future is a little bit more specific though, so I like that. Let's see what this called for. And it actually didn't include any of the data around this, so it was operating in the dark a bit. Okay, so that's totally fine. Let's go over. We've cleared through our enum. Let's go back over here, and we're going to call this. Like I said, we're going to do a symbol replace. This should ideally update anywhere else in the repository that refers to this type's property, right? So if it was using this before, we should see this update a number of things afterward. Okay, here we go. Look at this. So we have a few things that happened. Let's check these. Max days in future. You can see it did the symbol replacement here in an important hook. And we also have this updating something in a storybook story. Um, let's make sure that we are not in trouble there. So let's run storybook. Unfortunately, we've got these storybook story tests. That should be a good indicator if we've created a regression. So there it is, it's running. And now we will run test storybook. And just in case, let's also open this up here. This is for time slot selection, which is here. Looks good. Let's see. Do we have anything that indicates we can use max days in advance? Type config. This is restricted period step. So let's see with restricted period. Okay. I mean, it didn't crash. So fine. Let's see anything in the console. Looks fine. Okay. We have some other protection. We have a pipeline that runs on pull request that runs all these storybook stories as well. So we'll see if this is broken. So let's go ahead and commit it. Chore, actually, this is a refactor. I'm following conventional commits. A little bit of a mouthful there. So max days in future, refactor, rename, max day, just copy and paste it, rename max days in future on time slot, on scheduler, time slot selection, step config. Okay. Let's now do the same thing with this one, disabled days, and we will see these two things update. Let's actually do a disabled days search too. We didn't do this with the other one, but disabled days, let's see. So it's picking that up. off of use time slot, disabled days. Create a function that disables days that aren't in available dates. Okay, so this isn't concerned with that. In fact, it is likely we're not even using this functionality yet out of the config. So let's go ahead and commit it. I'm going to steal my commit message here because it's very similar, and we will be one step closer to having these cleaned up. Disabled days, boom. Okay, let's see. I think there was one other one that I noticed. Allow media upload. All right, let's see. Okay. All right. Boom. That looks good. Looks good. How did this update? Oh, okay. So we must have run a format on this when this changed. Okay, fair. And then we've got the change here. Let's run our storybook tests. Make sure that we're out of deep water. All right, looks good. And I, once again, will steal my commit message here. Rename, and this is additional details step config, additional details step config. Okay, close all these. All right, let's actually open up API types again. Okay, so now let's make sure that these are aligned with that. So booking flow step can, well, first let's fix this import. And we're gonna do this. Where are we here? This should be, yeah, it's in the right place. Base entity, so that so for context, base entity is going to include some basic fields that we configure on all Mongo schemas, or Mongoose schemas rather. And I'm going to need to shrink both these so we can get a better look at this file. So let's go down to the actual final config that we've got here. Okay, so we'll start with zip code step because I think we've got the base there. So what are we doing here? Booking flow step config. So this is step config, title and description. Let's see. So this is interesting. So we've got a content config that includes title, description, and icon. Right, because each step we want to actually control what icon gets rendered. Makes sense, right? We don't want somebody accidentally picking some other icon for a given step in that wizard flow. The question is, do we want to reuse this content config, which I know we already have available in this shared types library, or do we get declarative and allow for that redundancy with booking flow step config? I think the redundancy is okay because it's going to be a little bit, well, there are benefits to using content config here because when we step into the actual API service DTOs, we use class validation with DTO classes in Nest.js, and we've got one set up for content config already, which I like. But we would have to extend that anyway. So let's do this. Let's keep it as it is. We would have to extend that DTO class for content config and actually overwrite the DTO class anyway. So we're going to need to create one regardless. So let's just keep it as it is. It's good that it's there like this. Now extends base entity. Now I'm wondering, do we have? Let's see. We don't yet have a base entity that has org ID on it. I think it would be clean if we did this because let's see, base entity. Where are we? Entities. So we're already, yeah. Okay. So this makes a lot of sense. So let's do this. We're not going to export this. We are going to export base entity with organization, which is the foundation of the way that we run multi-tenant logic and data through the system. And so now, what's nice about this is we can do this. Um, this automatically pulls in base entity, and now we don't need this. Okay. Step type is coming from our enum. Step config is coming from here. Type config, this is the base booking flow step. It's unknown, and uh, we're gonna handle typing this via here, this discriminated typing, right? So this is the union. Um, okay, and so let's have a look. Let's compare these two. Um, do. Just wanted to see the base. So let's see, where's the base? Step type config. So, and I kind of like that better, to be honest. Let's use an or. So let's move. Okay, booking plus step config. Yeah. So we're gonna move this down. And we are going to union these because really we do know what to expect here. It's just there's a variety of options. This is essentially what we want to do, right? And look at that, step type config, additional, where's our time slot? It's at the bottom. Let's get rid of that. Customer summary, great. Okay, now this needs to replace this. Okay. Okay, and so now let's fix this. So now what are we doing? After we've composed the base, which is this, we then go into defining each of those discriminated types. So step type, type config, that's right. Service booking flow, yeah, so this is, let's mark this as to do. We will update this in a future ticket. And actually, let's be good, little Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, because type specific schemas. It looks like we've actually already. There we go. That's why. Aha. All right. We've actually we've eliminated from scope the need to actually build assembling type specific schemas. So for now, well, we'll put together our core base types, right, in this shared types folder. But we're not going to handle the discriminated types to get this ticket across the line in terms of the Mongoose schemas. So that's a nice one. What does it mean for us here? Not too much. So what do we do here? Future ticket. Oh no, it looks like we're missing that. Okay. And so what was it that I was looking for? Service selection step type. There we go. 683. Okay. So there's additional steps, additional details, time slot, customer booking. All of this is looking good. Summary booking. And then here's the union. And that is great. This looks good. So let's go ahead and commit this. It's another good atomic change. But in order to do that, actually, we've got to first commit the addition of base entity with organization. So, and the reason why is because we're consuming it here as if it could have already existed in our booking flow step entity. And it's a different thing. Like this change is different than what we were trying to do when we started to build out this booking flow step entity. So um, this is going to be extend shared entities to include base entity with organization. And that's going to help us out with bootstrapping other uh, entity types in the future that are tenant based. So now we can go ahead and add our booking flow entity or both, blah, blah, wow, booking flow step entity. Okay. And so we'll go ahead and do that. Sure. Add shared booking flow. Yeah, I'm just going to copy over the name of this. Doesn't have a copy name. Okay. Entity types. All right. We're getting close to the end here, at least with step one in our sequence. So let's accept these changes. So now let's see, does this make sense? Base create booking flow step. So it's assuming we've got a step type, we've got a step config. Let's take a look at what we're going to need to create here. And so where are you? There you are. So we need a step type, we need a step config, and we need a type config. Step type step config, and it looks like it's not addressing the type config. And so I think that's wrong. I think what we essentially need to do is incorporate all of this. So I think this is just going to extend off of the actual entity here. And let's see, an interface declaring them. Okay, so let's just make this a type. We prefer types over interfaces anyway. Um, there we go. And what is the issue here? And so let's just convert all these to types, right? And we're just going to use the beautiful powers of our Agentic IDE. Great suggestions. Step PTO base update booking step. Yeah, I would say this is a partial, right? In fact, it's a partial of this. And let's continue to update these. I am reading through this, by the way. I've gotten used to doing quick glancing, like confirmation that my tabs are doing what I need them to do. And then filter booking flow step ID. Okay, we can leave this in, but I think we're going to end up coming back to this and refactoring it later. Okay, this is wrong. Service selection. And let's copy over the little note that we made here. All right, okay. All right, let's just make sure that this is correct. This is the union of all of these, right? Let's see, did we do the same thing here? Okay, I guess I've removed it from here. So let's actually, let's amend this. We'll handle it in the scope uh, of the other ticket. And so I'm going to go ahead and amend this. because it was part of this work that this should have been done. And now I think we're in good shape here. Config, type config. And just a little note, notice how these discriminated types for the update DTOs, they don't include step type like our creates. Now, what you don't know is, and I hope I was good and included this in the actual original ticket, but we do not want to allow uh, updating of the step types. We want a new step type to be created every time there's that need. So you would remove the old step type that you want to change to a new step type and just create a new one from the start. And so let's see. Prevent step type change. I see that. I knew it wasn't crazy. All right, cool. So there we go. So that's correct. That is correct. I'm going to go ahead and I'm not totally sure what is going on here. I think so. We will have a filter DTO that's applied to our queries, the query params that come into a Nest.js controller request. But let's see, step type, is that the only thing that we would filter on? It's fine. We'll leave it. This is okay. We can come back and change it later. Okay. And so what are we doing here? Let's go ahead and steal our last message. So again, another atomic commit. Zero booking flow step DTO types. Great. And these are very simple barrel file updates. And so let's close everything because I think this view isn't helpful anymore. So what do we do here? Let's see. What was done? I don't see. This was added in. Yeah, I suppose it was. Does it follow the same structure that we have in other places? I believe it does. It does. Yeah, there you go. Barrel file there. And then this imports the root of the directory. Cool. And so let's commit these. For add shared booking flow step types to barrel files. Okay. And that does it. That is the first step in our sequence of implementation steps to get this ticket across the line. Now, from here, I would dive into our services API project, which is in a different part of this monorepo, and we'd start taking these types and extending off of them into class validator types. Um, I'm not going to record anything around that for today. I wanted to show you guys my flow and give you guys an idea of how one might go about using an agentic IDE to go and carry out some piece of work using atomic commits. And so I hope this was helpful, and reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.